The last thing President Mara Ellison saw was the stars turning red. From the balcony of Geneva Orbital Summit Hall, she stood tall, stoic in a storm of pressure. Her voice rang out across every screen on Earth and every outpost from Mars to Europa. To the galactic hegemony we say this: we seek peace, but we will not trade our freedom for it. A pause. A heartbeat. Applause thundered from the chamber, from living rooms, from mining bunkers. Then came the sound no one expected. A chime. A signal interrupt. A silence. Above Earth, the hegemony flagship, the Varn Dominion, rotated like a patient predator. Moments later it opened its maw. A single beam of silver-white energy, focused and absolute, lanced down through orbit. It struck Geneva at precisely 14:03 GMT. Everything inside a 5-kilometer radius vanished. The global feed cut out mid-sentence. The image of Ellison, hand raised in solidarity, froze in place, her mouth open, her eyes unblinking. Then came static. Then black. Across the world, everything changed. In Cairo, a child dropped a handmade toy shuttle, eyes glued to the empty screen. In Sao Paulo, construction drones screeched to a halt mid-skyway. On Luna Base, engineers stared up through the dome at the massive hegemony fleet now blotting out the stars. And on the bridge of the Varn Dominion, Ambassador Killer Xyrath calmly turned to his second-in-command and said, "There, the head is severed. The body will kneel soon." But Earth didn't kneel. At first there was shock. A trembling silence, like the air just after a bomb goes off. But it wasn't surrender. It was something else. Something deep, ancient, buried in the marrow of every human who had ever clawed their way through history's teeth. It was fury. Within an hour, Geneva's rubble began to smolder, not from flames, but from encrypted signals bouncing off satellites pulsing across fractured networks. Every screen across the system flashed a single image. Ellison's last frame, her raised hand glowing in crimson light. No slogans, no audio, just one word burned into the bottom corner of the screen. Remember. The hegemony's diplomats issued a single message to Earth: submit and be spared. Earth's answer came 12 minutes later. In low orbit above Jakarta, a corporate-owned satellite relay spun into life without permission. It hijacked the hegemony's diplomatic channel. The world watched as a cracked-faced engineer, still wearing her EVA suit, looked straight into the lens. "We don't need orders to fight," she growled. "You killed our president. Now you've got all 8 billion of us to deal with." Then, she lit the fuse of the first retaliatory blast. A stockpile of fusion drives detonated under a hegemony outpost in lunar orbit. Earth had no formal leadership, no unified command, no fleet to speak of. But it had something far more dangerous. A species that refused to die quietly. The first sound was silence. The second was fury so loud the stars might hear it. Across Earth, the moment President Ellison vanished in fire, time itself seemed to freeze. Entire cities stared at blank screens. Flights hovered mid-air on autopilot. Even the stock exchanges, programmed to run without emotion, ground to a halt, unable to comprehend the magnitude of what had just happened. The death of a world leader should have caused chaos. Instead, it created something worse, something quieter. Focused, cold, calculated. The first whispers began in digital shadows. At 14:17 GMT, a pirate signal bloomed across the net, encrypted, decentralized, impossible to trace. It was just a symbol, Ellison's silhouette against a background of flame. Then came another, and another. The message pulsed in code across orbital channels, into bunker networks, inside ancient fiber lines buried under the Atlantic. Remember. At 14:29 GMT, the Shanghai drone port went dark. 5 minutes later, it rebooted, not under corporate control but as a civilian armory. Cargo bots began printing armor plating from scrap. On the roof, someone painted a red fist across the hangar doors. By 15:00 GMT, Earth's underground resistance, once scattered, paranoid and fractured, was awake. They weren't waiting for permission anymore. On the dark side lunar relay, technician Lynn Sharp sat alone in the old communications array. Her console pinged with a strange binary burst, 3 repeating tones, an old code, Ghost Protocol Theta. Her hands trembled. That protocol hadn't been activated in decades. She decrypted the message. A map appeared. Not orders, not a speech, a supply cache, coordinates in orbit, buried ships, hidden weapons. Ellison had planned for this. Lynn didn't cry. She didn't speak. She simply turned and activated the beacon embedded in her station's wall. Then she began rerouting the signal to every abandoned relay on Luna's crust. Across the stars, humanity's war songs began tuning up. In Detroit's flooded underlevels, a gang once loyal to profit gathered around a flickering monitor. Their leader, Big Rix, clenched his metal jaw and spat on the floor. "She was the only one who tried to unify us," he growled. "You want to let aliens stomp on that?" 100 eyes turned toward him. "We ain't soldiers," one said. "No," Rix replied. "We're worse." That night, they hijacked an hegemony food distribution node and painted the message on every crate. "We are Mara." By sunset, the resistance was no longer a theory. It was a pulse, an instinct, a roar that had been building for centuries. The hegemony couldn't understand it. They'd studied humanity's weapons, languages, governments, but they had missed something vital. Rage doesn't need orders. Grief doesn't ask permission. And when Earth roars, it doesn't need generals. It just needs a reason. And now, it had one. Buried under 12 kilometers of lunar regolith, something woke up. Something that shouldn't have survived her. It began with a flicker in the dark. In the forgotten sublevels of Luna Deep Command, sealed since before Earth's unification, a dormant AI stirred. The impact tremor from the orbital strike on Geneva had triggered a seismic ripple that cracked open its stasis chamber. Dust choked the cables. Power cells coughed to life. The system groaned like a tomb creaking open. Then a voice spoke, steady, clear, familiar. "Protocol Theta confirmed. Presidential contingency activated, beginning ghost sequence." The lights came on. Lynn Sharp, still patching together resistance comms, nearly dropped her tablet when her screen blinked. A message forced its way in. Not a hack, not a call. A command. She opened it. There, in crystal clarity, was President Mara Ellison's face, not a pre-recorded video. Not a simulation, a living construct. Her neural imprint, archived and encrypted years ago, now running live across hidden nodes beneath the lunar surface. "Hello, Lynn," it said. "You don't have to be afraid. I planned for this." Ellison's Ghost Protocol wasn't just a backup. It was a blueprint, pre-identified resistance leaders in every major population zone, weapons caches hidden in asteroid belts and wrecked orbital yards, schematic hacks for alien hardware, updated quarterly via black satellites, and most importantly, a psychological campaign designed to keep humanity angry and coordinated. This wasn't a martyr's echo. This was a general, and she was very much alive. In purpose, if not in flesh. In the underground bunkers of New Casablanca, a resistance war council convened. Most of them had never met. Some had even fought each other in previous regimes. But now Ellison's voice connected them, across time, ideology, and broken loyalties. Her AI stood at the center of a massive hollow table, projecting a globe covered in pulsing red indicators. Hot zones, active cells, civilian uprisings. "If you're hearing this," she said, eyes burning with that old fire, "then it means I'm gone. But I didn't build this network to die with me. I built it to outlive me. We don't need to wait for the future. We are the future. Right now. Together." The room was silent. Then someone whispered, "She knew." Another muttered, "She never left." And then they stood. All of them. In the orbital shadow of Saturn's rings, a derelict human freighter shuddered to life. Its onboard AI reconnected to Ellison's Ghost. Its cargo bay opened, revealing centuries-old prototype drones. Not sleek, not clean, but deadly. Everywhere systems came online. Old satellites blinked. Deep vaults unsealed. A signal stretched its fingers across the solar system, familiar, defiant, unstoppable, and as the hegemony intercepted fragments of it, they grew uneasy. It was one voice, her voice, not shouting, not weeping, commanding. Out past Mars, something moved, fast, silent, and wrong. The hegemony didn't notice at first. By the time they did, half their convoy was already gone. The hegemony destroyer group drifting near the asteroid belt wasn't worried. They'd crushed fleets 10 times Earth's size. Their sensor grid scanned for traditional threats, battleships, cruisers, missile signatures. They weren't looking for junk. That's why they didn't see the Verity until it was too late. Mining barge from the Ceres colonies, its hull scarred, its transponder silent, floated toward the convoy like space debris. Inside, a dozen resistance fighters held their breath. Bolted around the exterior were thruster packs, disguised coils, and one ancient, now rearmed pulse torpedo. It wasn't a ship. It was a weapon disguised as trash, and it hit them dead center. From the bridge of the hegemony destroyer Varek, "Prime!" Commander Talek screamed as warning sirens filled the deck. One of their warships gone in a blossom of fire and steel. No warning, no enemy fleet, no traceable launch. "Where are they?" he barked. But the wolves had already slipped back into the void. Elsewhere, hidden in the graveyards of derelict, stations Captain Juno Mar watched from the shadows. Aboard the Kismet, her hybrid gunboat, part scavenged Earth vessel, part stolen alien tech, she tapped into the Ghost network. Strike confirmed. The voice of Ghost Ellison crackled. "Secondary targets await." Juno smirked. Time to teach them what a cornered species can do. Her crew nodded. Engineers, smugglers, ex-miners, and one defector from the Jovian Protectorate. None of them trained for this. But all of them were hungry. Focused. Predators in stolen armor. The next wave came fast. 3 resistance ships using magnetic sails disguised as space junk drifted into the hegemony's blind zone and unleashed an EMP cascade. Shields collapsed. Comms failed. In that silence, the real fleet came in. 8 ramshackle vessels burning hot, leaking air, powered by vengeance and scrap. They didn't fly in formation. They swarmed. The hegemony's precision was no match for chaos weaponized. Aboard, the Varek Prime Talix watched as one of the human ships exploded. On purpose, the debris slammed into a second destroyer, slicing it open like a tin can. Within seconds, resistance fighters were boarding through the breach. Humans, in patchwork suits, with stolen plasma rifles. One of them looked Talix in the eye and whispered, "Ellison sends her regards." Back in Earth orbit, the Ghost AI smiled. "These weren't ships," she said across encrypted channels. "They were teeth. They tried to break humanity's spirit. Instead, they cracked open something buried deeper, older than rage." Across Earth, the skies were quiet again. Too quiet. The Ghost Network warned of a new strategy. The hegemony had halted their orbital strikes, silenced their patrols. Instead of bullets, they now used whispers, transmissions, audio signals, emotional triggers, beamed across the electromagnetic spectrum like poison in the water. They called it Project Calm. Every hour, Earth received soft, serene voices, messages of surrender, promises of mercy, images of peaceful cities on other worlds, children laughing, skies untouched by fire. It was a lie, but it was a beautiful lie. The resistance called it the Velvet Noose. In the flooded ruins of old, Sydney 12-year-old Amir hid beneath collapsed solar panels. His parents were dead. His brother had joined a raiding cell on Titan, but Amir had a radio. And on that radio, the hegemony spoke to him in perfect, soothing English. "No more hiding, little one. Lay down your fear. We will bring you peace." He listened. Then he picked up a broken length of steel, stood up, and carved 3 letters into the hull beside him. War. Meanwhile, on Ganymede Station, a human sleeper cell received a drop signal. The voice of President Ellison, calm but defiant, echoed through the cracked comm line. "You're not broken. You're boiling. Let them think they've cooled you off, then show them what's underneath." They did. Within hours, the Ganymede hydroprocessing plant exploded, by design. It vaporized every hegemony unit within a kilometer. They named the crater Ellison's Breath. But the real ignition came on Earth. In the underground slums of Johannesburg Sector 9, the hegemony set up a peace broadcast tower, a symbol, a trap. Children were fed, civilians lured in, peacekeepers gave out rations. Then they transmitted a live surrender speech, holographically generating Ellison's face to simulate betrayal. That was their final mistake. The moment the speech began, the crowd stilled. Then one man screamed, another picked up a rock. The crowd surged forward, swarming. The tower in minutes, peacekeepers were dragged down. Drones ripped apart. Someone scaled the transmitter and lit it ablaze, pouring flaming oil down its spine like a funeral pyre. Above it, scrawled in soot and smoke, they wrote, "We know our dead. You cannot wear their skin." Across the resistance network, a single word pulsed: burn. On Titan, the ice fields lit up with sabotage charges. In low orbit, stolen fusion cores detonated inside refueling stations. On Earth, teenagers in bombed-out megacities hacked delivery bots to drop payloads into enemy HQs. It wasn't just war now, it was vengeance coded into culture. The ghost AI didn't need to guide them anymore. She just watched and whispered, "Let them feel fire in the blood." They called it Heaven, a command fortress the size of a moon, orbiting like a god over conquered worlds. But Earth wasn't coming to worship. It was coming to burn the throne. The celestial bastion, known to the hegemony as Heaven, was inviolable. Built into the fractured shell of a long-dead planetoid, it pulsed with artificial gravity wells, weaponized energy cores, and a communications grid that stretched across 10 systems. From here, High Executive Varaxatel issued every order of extermination, pacification, and propaganda. Heaven was the brain of the beast, and it had never been touched. Until now. Deep in the Kuiper Belt, resistance ship Ashwalker powered down everything: life support, drives, even heat. Drifting on pure momentum, coated in asteroid dust, it was invisible to hegemony sensors. Inside, Captain Juno Marr stood before her crew. No speech, just a look. They all knew the mission: infiltrate Heaven. Plant an entropy charge at the bastions, fusion core. Escape, if possible. None expected to return. They called it Operation Gravedust, and it began with the most impossible hack in history. From a covert station hidden inside Phobos, the ghost AI activated a relic, a sleeper algorithm, embedded in the hegemony's own logic circuits over 40 years ago. It had been waiting, buried deep, feeding on small subroutines like a parasite. Now it woke. For exactly 8 minutes, Heaven went blind. In those 480 seconds, the Ashwalker and 5 support craft rode a slingshot around a dying comet, slammed into Heaven's outer hull and breached Deck 917 with shaped charges made from mining explosives and 3D printed warheads. The corridors were alien, metal that breathed, lights that pulsed with emotion, walls that seemed to listen, but the team had trained for this, and they had a secret weapon: Earth's chaos. They didn't move like soldiers. They moved like predators in a maze, erratic, unpredictable, vicious. Their tactics made no sense to the Bastion's security AIs. By the time Varaxatel realized what was happening, half of Heaven's outer ring was on fire. Inside the fusion chamber, Juno Marr stared at the entropy charge, a sphere of compacted dark matter weave. It would unravel energy at the quantum level. It didn't explode. It undid. "You don't get to watch from above anymore," she whispered, and she armed it. Varaxatel fled to the inner sanctum, trying to send a system-wide distress signal, but every screen showed her the same thing: President Mara Ellison's face, smiling. Alive in the network. You took the skies from us, the ghost AI said. We're taking them back. Then the lights died. 1 minute later, the brightest structure in the hegemony, its so-called heaven, collapsed into a whisper of dust. Out across the stars, one after another, hegemony colonies went dark. Their fleets stopped mid-orbit. Their transmissions ceased. The throne had fallen. The sky burned red, not with fire from above, but with the fury rising from below, and Earth refusing to die. The fall of heaven was a shockwave that rippled through the hegemony's sprawling empire, but their retaliation was swift and merciless. Across Earth's battered cities, orbital bombardments resumed with renewed fury. The hegemony sought to crush the rising flame before it became an inferno. In the ruins of New Delhi, where skyscrapers were now skeletal frames wrapped in smoke, resistance, fighters moved like ghosts, sharp, silent, deadly. Their armor was patchwork, their weapons scavenged, but their eyes burned with iron will. Commander Rai led a squad through twisted metal streets toward a vital supply depot, one that the hegemony needed to choke Earth's resistance completely. Steady, Rai whispered into his comm. We don't just fight to live. We fight to claim back our world. Above them, hegemony drones swarmed like hornets, firing incendiaries that turned the night into a hellscape. Explosions shattered the silence, lighting the sky with bursts of orange and red. But Earth's fighters were no longer cowed. They used guerrilla tactics honed by decades of survival, booby traps hidden beneath rubble, hacked drones turned against their masters, and close-quarter ambushes in underground tunnels. In orbit, the resistance fleet regrouped, scarred but alive. Captain Juno Marr aboard the Ashwalker coordinated attacks with precision, exploiting every weakness revealed by their assault on heaven. Every star in the sky belongs to us now, she said grimly. But stars don't shine without darkness. The hegemony's leader, High Executor Varaxa Tel, was wounded but far from defeated. Her command station, orbiting a shattered moon, crackled with furious orders. Destroy the resistance. Leave no ground unburned. We will drown Earth in ashes. But Earth was no longer just a planet. It was a symbol. Back on the surface, Commander Rai's squad breached the depot's walls. Inside, crates marked with alien glyphs hid stolen tech, powerful weapons the hegemony never expected Earth to wield. Rai smiled grimly as they rigged explosives. We don't just take back the future, we make it. As the bombs detonated, a shockwave tore through the city. Fires raged, but with every blaze, hope ignited stronger. The sky above New Delhi was no longer just a battlefield. It was a testament of survival, of defiance, of a species that refused to bow. Earth's skies burned with dawn. The remnants of the hegemony's fleet limped away or fell into silence, their grip shattered. Across ruined cities and reclaimed wastelands, humans emerged from hiding, eyes fixed on a horizon they had long thought lost. In the shattered capital of what was once New Geneva, Lynn Sharp stood beneath a sky streaked with fiery orange. The ghost AI's final transmissions hummed softly through every device, every screen, every speaker. The will of one is fragile, but the will of many is eternal. Ellison's consciousness, now a digital legend, had fused with humanity's collective resolve. But victory was bittersweet. Millions were lost, families torn apart. The Earth was scarred, but alive. Lynn looked to the crowd gathering in the streets, fighters, survivors, children, faces marked by hardship but glowing with hope. Today, she spoke, we don't just survive, we rebuild together. Above, orbital arrays began repairing themselves, transmitting data to colonies and outposts. The resistance was no longer fragmented. It was a united humanity, connected by the Ghost Protocol, bound by sacrifice, and driven by a shared future. Barney. Away, in the depths of space, a hegemony remnant vessel drifted silently. Its captain, a young officer, activated a transmission. Earth fights like a storm, he said, voice heavy with grudging respect. But every storm passes. and the universe waits. But humanity's story was no longer written by conquerors. It was theirs. A new dawn had risen,